Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of From Right to Red. My name is Craig.
And I'm Paul.
Hello, Paul. We have a
I'm
fantastic... Oh, hey, Paul. We've got a fantastic episode today. First, I want to mention, just, we don't mention this very often, but go to patreon.com/From Right to Red. Subscribe if you like what you hear. And then we can keep providing you more of what you hear. So go ahead and subscribe, please.
And you can feel good. All of the money is going straight towards tunnel building
cocaine
in New York.
Yes. Tunnel building. That's definitely what we need to be giving all that money to.
And yes, also crack. Why not
crack.
That too? Yeah. What's the one thing you want more than anything else right now?
Just crack. Straight crack. Yes, please go ahead and subscribe for us. That would be fantastic. Before we get into the meat of the episode, we're going to talk a little bit about some kind of like comparative democracies a little bit. But before we get into that, Paul has some updates for us that we want to go over. So go ahead.
Because I think with how much we have touched on the topic with UAW and all the amazing work they've been doing lately, it's definitely worth still covering what they're continuing to do. Shawn Fein is being very clear about it. He's openly putting out messages of here's exactly what our goals are, and they're pretty simple, straightforward. And they're saying if you want help with unionizing, we will come help you. And they just announced on Martin Luther King Day, Shawn Fein was doing a presentation and talking about a place in Alabama. I don't know if it was Stellantis or just another auto worker, but they signed and they joined UAW with them, which is amazing. I'd love to see it. More and more people joining unions is great. And there's another in talks.
It's great for union workers. It's great for non-union workers.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you're not a union worker, it's always good to remember you might take a little longer, but your wages will naturally have to rise as well. It always happens.
Rising tide floats all ships.
Yeah. I love seeing the UAW willingly help other people join and get what they want. Some people have even said it was as simple as company kept promising this, but wouldn't put it in writing in our UAW contract. And we just said enough is enough. We're not taking their word for it. So we want it in writing.
We got possible union action happening in Alabama then, is what you're saying. We got them. Yep. They signed the cards. That means they're past the first step, which is usually the hardest step in all of this.
Yes. And I believe there's more to come from how Shawn Fein speaks. So
you know what?
That is good news. I hope there's more to come. I hope there's more people joining.
I do want to tie this in a little bit to what we're going to be talking about later too, because just a reminder for those of you maybe that didn't hear, or it's been a while since we talked about the UAW. We did a larger episode in the past, but all of this new labor action that's coming out of the UAW is because of the way their democracy in the UAW changed. So last year they used to use a form of a representative democracy in the UAW when they would do their voting, where not everybody it wasn't one member, one vote, right? It wasn't one member, one vote.
Right? That's what changed just this year.
That changed this year, which led directly to ultimately led directly to the election of Shawn Fein. But first of all, it led to the creation of a inter-party in the UAW called UAWD, which stands for Unite All Workers for Democracy. So Unite All Workers for Democracy, they were able to push now because they had all of this line level member support and drive for somebody that was really pro worker like Shawn Fein. So it was that little tweak in the way that their democracy functioned that allowed for all of these radical changes to come down the pipe, which is kind of the theme of our episode.
Yeah,
so it kind of works out great.
That is fantastic. That is one of the great benefits of unions going to that, of you actually have that say. They brought democracy back to it.
Yes.
Which is something we know is very much needed right now in the United States, more than just at work. But that,
Yep.
speaking of that at work, there's democracy at work. If you are interested in these topics and you've never heard of democracy at work, I'm not going to say all of it is great and every last video you'll ever find will be amazing,
No.
but there's definitely a lot of good stuff to be heard from democracy at work.
That's the Richard Wolff stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Fucking lib.
it's
No,
not
I'm just kidding.
nothing's perfect. You know
No.
what I mean? But like there's a lot of good information that you might get even from hearing something he says that you disagree with.
Yeah.
At least it's near that conversation. It's
He
a
actually
very
went,
interesting thing to watch.
he went a little bit viral yesterday or the day before on Reddit. I don't know if you saw that. There was a couple of posts that popped up in mainstream subs that were like, it was like a 2-minute discussion of Richard Wolff describing, literally just describing how stocks work and shareholders work, but describing it from a Marxist lens, so that at the end of the 2 minutes, you're like, oh, wow, that's a ripoff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
so that's what
it's the power of dialectical material thinking.
yes. So that's what I mean. Like he's one of those guys, not everyone's going to love him.
No.
Just how I feel, there's a lot of people that I listen to, you know, the one I'm thinking of exactly,
Yeah.
that I don't love the person, but I do like a lot of their takes and a lot of at least the news I can get from them. Doesn't mean I have to love them as a person, but
I'm not,
it
to be
is
honest,
what it
I'm not a
is.
huge fan of Richard Wolff.
He's
just
not
like,
perfect.
yeah,
He's
just
not
like
great.
on like you said, like on that human level, like something about the way that he talks, I'm just like, I can't.
But I also,
he's great.
I kind of get those vibes too of like, if he wasn't such a wealthy man who can say and do whatever he wants, would he have these views?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but you can get a lot of good information from democracy at work. So,
and honestly, I don't even care. I'll love all class traders, you know.
I mean,
right. I
like
gotta love
even
myself
every day when you wake up and look in the mirror.
Yeah, look at this stud.
You're like, this is the most beautiful class trader I've ever seen.
I know. Right. All right. So that's good. Good stuff with UAW. You got any other updates or anything for us, or what are we thinking?
I mean, I wish we had more to say about Gaza right now. And even the international court. I wish there was more to be sure about right now, because it's up in the air how things are going to play out. Like I keep having days where I get hope, like, and then I think about it and I'm like, man, even if the court decides it, who enforces that court's decision?
Right.
And will they?
I also
like
just want to say
it's back and forth.
I decided finally since our last episode to watch some of the proceedings, and literally immediately upon watching, I was like, oh, there's no fucking way this is gonna be anything worthwhile, because they're literally wearing fucking like powdered wigs at the court.
That's how you made your decision?
Yeah,
because
100%.
There's still people in powdered wigs.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about like, look, if you want to talk about like Western bias, like we can talk about each individual lawyer that's up there and talk about like the Western bias that they might have. But when you're literally at like a fucking like a Halloween party, the theme of which is British imperialism, it's really hard to like make a case against like imperial settler colonialism. You know,
like who's gonna stop the imperialists is the imperialists.
Yeah, these guys in fucking powdered wigs definitely gonna get it done.
Hey, but I mean, one of the most famous renditions of an empire was the number 2 in power helped overthrow the empire.
Dude, imagine if
Darth Vader was just like, I'm gonna throw you off this thing. If only we could have that storybook ending.
Dude, just imagine if it was like the other way around, and like the like alternate history and the International Court of Justice was based on like African tribal traditions, and you got like lawyers with straight up like just like they're like shaved. They're like, yeah, just
stop. Just stop right now. Just. But okay. But
I'm done.
all jokes aside,
Yeah,
it was cool to at least see the amount of clips pulled from it of amazing speakers like standing up and saying it, because even if we can't make that decision in the court, there might be Americans who maybe see a clip and hear someone passionately talking about the horrors that are happening there, and it might
yeah,
change some normal people's minds, the average person who might just see one of those clips, the thing that kind of makes them go, oh yeah, that's not good, like,
yeah.
that might happen. But at the same time, they might see the fucking powdered wigs and think it's a fake TV show. Like,
Right. Right. It's so funny, dude.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, wait, whoa, hold up.
Just
You guys
imagine if
still do
every
that?
lawyer had to start their opening statement by like clicks. Look, I'll say this. Like, it sounds like I'm being really mean here, but I know that a court that was framed that way would provide more justice for these people. Just like hands down. But it is a funny thing to think about.
Oh my god.
Sorry,
It
bro.
is definitely a funny thing to think about. Did you also see there was a video that kind of went viral? I did see it on Reddit, but I also saw it on Instagram, and it was an old clip of Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about old Arabic things, talking about Baghdad, and it's like an older clip, I believe, from not long after like 2004.
Is this the one where he goes in to describe like the reason algebra is called algebra, like where he talks about
The clip.
Yes, I saw that clip when it came out. I'm gonna age myself horribly like an old man, but like,
oh, it's old. I
it's
remember
old.
that. I remember that clip.
And I was
It's
like,
old.
damn, Neil deGrasse Tyson's based, and now he's
But,
like every year posting the same thing about kissing himself in the mirror. What happened to that guy?
I mean,
It's kind of funny.
oh,
Whatever.
yeah. I mean, yeah. No, I have the same feeling as you. I don't love him more for that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Neil, I know Neil's listening. We want you on the show. So,
dude,
you're
if
the
Neil
best.
deGrasse Tyson somehow heard this and we could get him on the show,
Dude, he's
I would
listening for sure.
I would welcome him with open arms. He would be fun to talk to. Why
He
not?
would be fun.
Like,
He would be fun to talk. I would wrestle him too, because he used to be like a wrestler or whatever.
Yeah, but he has to wear his singlet when he comes on.
A singlet, dude. I was thinking like Greco-Roman, oil it up. He's an attractive man,
Even better. You know what?
Yeah.
I'll give him that. He is a great face for science. Like,
he is.
And he has just that right amount of like, he genuinely is nerdy. And I love
Neil,
that.
I'll be your mirror, baby.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. All right, so today I think we wanted to talk a little bit about democracy in general, right?
Yes.
Is that what we're going for?
Yeah, and even just to like the idea behind it was us thinking of things we could talk about, and me thinking back to a conversation where this was one of my first big ones with switching my views, I guess, or as I discovered my views, I think is a better way of wording it. But democracy was up there with like, how does democracy work? Like,
Yeah.
you can talk about materialism all you want and theory, but like, what about putting democracy into practice after a revolution, and how do you set it up? But I think it's important for Americans to remember the Princeton study in 2004, August 2004, in the politics department of Princeton University. It's called Inequality and Democratic Responsiveness: Who Gets What They Want from Government.
Right.
This paper came out in 2004, essentially debunking the myth of America being a democracy.
Right. Break it down for us.
Like,
What is that? What is this
so
paper saying?
I decided this is a great example of why we need to think about different ways of doing democracy, because this is a study on our own American democracy. 2004 it came out. This guy Gilens, I think is how you pronounce it, Gilens, but he examines the extent to which different social groups find their policy differences reflected in actual government policy and the variation of these patterns across time and policy domains. So, really, for example, like when Americans with low and high incomes will disagree on a policy, like are policy outcomes more likely to reflect the preferences of affluent Americans? If so, does the advantage of these more affluent Americans differ over time? Like depending on party controls, like is their party they affiliate with the party that's in Congress, has the majority in Congress or elected president right now? And does this go across all policy domains? Like Republicans or Democrats in the population more are they more likely to get policies they prefer when their party is in control or not in control? Because his database contains policy preferences broken down by income, education, partisanship, sex, race, region, religion, and union and non-union status, he'll be able to address the multitude of questions concerning responsiveness to public preferences. So, before I continue just reading this long summary, like essentially it breaks down after that. I'll do the short version that this goes from a large amount of national survey questions from 1992 to 98. And it's asking people their preferences, their income to get all this information. So he has all of the actual data that you would need to do a fair judgment of it. Like I
Yeah,
would say at least. But
for sure.
essentially, when Gilens looks separately at respondents with different incomes, he finds the higher an individual's income is, the more likely it is that the government policy will reflect his or her preferences. This relationship, however, does not increase in a linear fashion. The difference between poor and middle income Americans is modest compared with the difference between middle and high incomes. Like, if you think you're middle class in America, in the eyes of the rich, you're broke still, essentially. Like, you're still that same class as the poor, essentially, even though you think you're not. It's kind of an illusion, is what that's saying. Like, which is crazy to me to imagine. Uh, so, in other words, it is not that the poor are especially less likely than middle income Americans to get what they want, but that the rich are more likely to see their preferences reflected in government policy. Gillen's results show that even the comparatively modest level of government responsiveness to the preferences of poor and middle income Americans is largely a reflection of the instances where those preferences are shared by the rich.
Yep.
Of course, when I consider only those policy issues where the preferences of high and medium income respondents diverge, I find huge biases in responsiveness favoring the well off. Insane. Like a
Very insane.
Princeton University study.
Yeah.
This vast discrepancy in government responsiveness to citizens with different incomes stands in stark contrast to the ideal of political equality that Americans hold so dear. like
Right.
they'll rave about it all day. So, although perfect political equality is unrealistic, representational biases of this magnitude call into question the very democratic character of our society.
There you go.
Like, so this is 20 years ago
Ultimately,
now, coming
yeah.
up on 20 years in a few months. This is proving like if you are 1%, your opinions matter more than anyone else.
Way more. Yeah. And it, people shouldn't be surprised by this. You know, like this is what capitalism is. When you
It's advanced feudalism.
right, I mean, there's a group of 500 to maybe 2,000 people in the United States who, if they want something, it happens,
Yeah, which
no matter
is
what.
a very
And
small number of people.
yeah, and if those people happen to want some of the same things that poor people want, that's great for poor people. But if they don't, then poor people get the shaft, you know, and and that just shows that while on paper our democracy may look great, you know, you write down the way that our voting works, you write down the way that our elections work, and you look at it and you say, wow, that is going to work awesome. But in
Yeah, it does
practice,
look like it should be awesome.
right, in practice, it does look like it should be awesome, but in
It looks
practice,
like it
we can
should be
see the
great.
results. And if you only look at like the paper, you're missing the whole point of democracy. The whole point of democracy is to provide the most amount of benefit to the most amount of people as much as possible. You know, like let's spread the wealth around, you know, let's make sure that everybody's happy and healthy and getting what they want. That's what democracy is about. And so if the results aren't giving you, you know, if the things that are coming out are not the results that you want, if you're putting something into this system on paper and the results that are coming back out the other way are not working for the vast majority of people or enough people, then there's clearly something wrong, you know.
Yeah,
And like Paul said, this is 20 years ago this study came out.
yeah.
How
A
much worse has
Princeton
our democracy
University
gotten since then?
study.
You know.
And I
It,
imagine, like, that study, I don't know if you remember it coming out. I only remember because I had, you know, we all have a couple teachers. We were like, they were actually awesome. I had a teacher who had us look at that in I think it was civics class or something.
right,
But like, that's the only reason I knew of it then. I can't imagine most people even know of that study.
20
I don't
years
think it had
ago,
that much like news or anything.
I remember it coming out because it was my 60th birthday when it came out
Your
20 years
60th birthday. Yeah. It was not like my freshman like my freshman year of high school civics class.
Man, even Paul's younger than
Wow.
me. What a
Wow. Old. But
speaking
like,
of cool studies,
how many
sorry, go
people,
ahead.
but that's my thing, is how many people do you think even know of that study, and do they have to? I think the vast majority of Americans know that that study is true. Like, we know what we want is not happening. We know
So,
politicians lie. My whole
uh,
life, people have made those jokes. So
yeah,
why do we just let it happen?
I'm of two minds though. I think that have you ever read the book Capitalist Realism or
Yeah,
Capitalist Realism, something like that?
you and I discussed that once, I think.
Okay. So, uh, I think the issue with this, and every time I think for the first few years after that study came out, I did try and bring it up with people. Maybe the reaction would be different now, 20 years on. But when it came out, uh, I would talk to people that were conservative or at the time were not like happy with government. And the reaction that I always get was like visceral defense. Like it was like, well, you know, and it probably didn't help that I was trying to
What?
bring up other countries at the time, like to compare it
Yeah.
with.
Wait, are you? Let me just take one wild guess what country Craig may have compared it to.
I'm gonna try to avoid that as much as possible. It will
Uh,
come up at this point in
yeah.
this episode, but
So then
um,
Craig starts talking to him in Mandarin, and
it's weird, dude. It's weird that the pipe fitter, or no, it's weird that the plumber that I had over my house didn't want to talk to me about how Xi Jinping is the greatest leader of all time.
yeah, you would think like anyone would want to have that conversation.
Right. That's so weird that he didn't want to have that conversation with me. He got all offended and called me a
I
commie.
I wonder if can you guess who I was imagining you were doing that to?
Who I can't guess who.
I don't know. I don't want to make you have to edit it all.
I can cut it out. I don't care. I'm good at it.
I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
picturing you
Yeah. Oh no.
going and being like, "So what do you think of this study?"
Dude, we're gonna bleep his name out, but I actually have had multiple conversations about Chinese democracy with that person.
Because as soon as it said they had a visceral reaction, I could picture him just
the first time it was like that with that person, but since then I think I'm making some headway, you know. Pretty soon he's going to be begging Xi Jinping for some J-22 Chengdu fighters to take down the oppressive United States government any moment. All right.
Oh man. Yeah, he'll make that switch.
Right, for sure.
He's talked to me about, like, one day I'll just have my own farm. We'll all live off the land as a community. I'm like, you're so close. You have half the word right there.
Yeah, dude.
The same root of the
I almost
word.
want to take people like that, and I want to be like, all right, this is what I want to do. I want you to imagine yourself on that farm, doing all of this, and then I want you to go back in time, like 5 years before that, and tell me like what steps need to be taken for you to get there. Because when you play that out, you end up in the middle of a communist state.
Yeah. You're like, by the end you're like, so now that my commune is built, wait, what?
How did I get here? How did I
end up in a commune?
Yeah.
And we're all so happy.
No, but to go back to it, I think I would get like a visceral defensive reaction, because it's like everybody can feel, anybody who believes really strongly in liberal democracy, that's not me, just to be clear, but anybody who does believe like, oh, liberal democracy is the greatest thing that since sliced bread, if you talk to them about that, they get like, that's hitting somewhere very, very close to their like ideological core, so they kind of have to like push back, like, I'm sorry, like I can't do that, like I don't completely agree. Like, things are bad, but I don't completely agree that I have no say. They have to.
And I think that's partly like, once you hit a certain like demographic in age, not to be an ageist, but like it's partly how people have grown up too, believing so strongly in like, we are the good guys spreading democracy and freedom everywhere, as we put in like fascist regimes across the globe. They're like, we're bringing them democracy, and like, we don't bring it when we occupy, and we don't leave them with it either. So I don't know where this idea of like,
and we've never seen a fascist right-wing dictator that we didn't immediately want to supply with weapons and money,
right?
So like,
it's actually one.
Who?
One. Actually, no, because immediately they were like, oh, we have like IBM and all these people that can help you set up these concentration camps. So never mind. Immediately,
don't get me started on World War II.
Because then they got to a point where they're like, shit, the rest of the world's watching. They're going to lose. Well, I guess we join that side.
Not even only that, too, but if you look at, oh, God, I'm going to get off on such a fucking weirdo tangent.
Let's not, because then we're going to talk about Pearl Harbor for an hour. Move on.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because Pearl Harbor was like my first.
Look at all the pacts that Stalin tried to make with the West against the Nazis. Look into that.
Yeah, like look into the quotes of Hitler talking about how amazingly the U.S. purged these people from their land.
Yeah,
like, man, we're gonna try to do as well as they did.
Anyways,
we'll
completely derail everything. Yeah,
my original Gulf of Tonkin, which is my original 9/11.
yeah. So I think it's interesting that you brought up studies, because I have some studies.
I would love to hear another study. I don't know how many listeners would ever read studies like this. So since I'm a nerd who does love it, I love to share it with people. Like, here's what you need to know. Here's what that study said, because they're tough to read.
I like to break things down sometimes into like I said before, like, no matter how it looks on paper, whatever you put in, you have to evaluate the output, and if the output is not providing the proper results, what tends to happen is people start like kind of losing faith in the system on paper, You know, if you keep trying the same thing on paper over and over again and you keep getting the results that you don't want, you start losing faith in that, right? So there was this study by Dahlia Research. I can't remember what year it is. And it was just a simple survey. And there was 2 questions. The questions, I'm going to paraphrase them, but it essentially was like, in your country, do you believe that? I'm sorry, I shouldn't paraphrase it that way because that's incorrect. The way that I should paraphrase it is, you personally, do you believe that democracy is important? Okay, that was one question, and the other question was, do you believe that your country is democratic? And they did this survey of a lot of different countries all over the world. Right. I want to read some of the results for you. Germany. Is democracy important? 85% of respondents said yes. Is your country democratic? 67% said that it was.
It's higher than I thought they would have gotten.
Yeah, me too. Japan. Do you believe that democracy is important? 60% said yes, which tells you a lot about Japan.
Wait, it's only 60%.
Only 60%. Yes? Yeah, if you're not Japan pilled, we're going to do an episode on fascism in Japan.
Japanese are weird, man. They're their own whole thing. I don't know.
And then as far as my country is democratic, 46% said yes. Brazil. Do you believe democracy is important? 83% said yes. 51% believed their country is democratic.
What year?
The year on this, I don't know. I just took notes here.
I would just be curious.
I'd have to look that up.
What point that was for Brazil, because depending on when they would ask Brazil, it could be vastly
total shit show. Answers. Yeah, it could be all over the place.
That could be a whole nother episode.
The last 2 that I want to focus on: United States. Do you believe democracy is important? 73% said yes. Do you believe your country is democratic? 49% said yes. And then the last country that I want to say. People's Republic of China. Do you believe democracy is important? 84% said yes. Do you believe your country is democratic? 73% said yes. Jesus. It was the highest out of any country surveyed. They believe that their country is democratic. So and the reason for that is simple. Honestly, like I will say this until I'm red in the face. It doesn't even matter if there was. It doesn't even matter if there was any democratic system at all, because of the dynamic, because of the dynamic that I just described at the beginning of this. Wherein the results are what drives your answer to this. The people of China have been getting incredible results for the past 30 years from the system that they're using. So if they're asked, do you believe this is democratic? They're like, yeah, all the things that I want are coming true. I'm getting better wages. I'm getting, my quality of life is vastly improved. I have an incredible amount of infrastructure spending. I have an incredible amount of spending on the things that I care about. So yeah, democracy is great and my country is democratic. Whether it is or not doesn't matter. In my opinion, because I'm a dialectical materialist, that doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's great that it is. I believe that it is democratic, but ultimately the results speak for themselves. If the people are getting what they want, boom, that's it. Democracy is a tool, right? It's not an ornament to set on a shelf. If it's not delivering results, it doesn't matter. So that's kind of how I feel on that study. And without even getting too crazy about China, we can even look at the UK, right? Because you'll hear a lot of people that'll say places like China
UK is an interesting one to look at, because they still have
a monarchy,
bits and pieces of the monarchy, but mixed. That's a very interesting democracy.
And I think if you talk to people in the United States, as opposed to a lot of other countries, where I've had these conversations with people, if you talk to people in the United States about what it means to be democratic or what democracy is, a lot of them will be like, well, we get to vote for our president. They don't do that in communist China. They don't do that in, these crazy lefty states, these crazy commie states. We're democratic because we get to vote for our president. First of all, that's not true.
Yeah, we're clearly seeing that, because if that were true, our two choices wouldn't always be the crazy two choices we end up with.
And also the two choices that we get, our vote literally does not count for that. Like our vote
No.
literally doesn't count for that. Like the only the votes that matter are the Electoral College. And if you don't believe me,
Which is
go
crazy.
look at the 2000 election. 2000, literally the other guy won. Al Gore won the election. Like, and the votes didn't matter. What mattered was the Electoral College. So
But
no.
also, like, if we had Gore Lieberman, though, I mean,
right. I know.
I mean,
look again. The choices
it maybe
suck,
would have been a little better, but
tub of mayonnaise versus a tub of mayonnaise.
But that's the thing, is like it's always that, and it's not like, as far as president goes, it's not democratic. But also, how much power does that American president have at 4 years? I'm worried about what are senators, House of Representatives, like what are these people doing, and how do we elect them? That matters too.
That does matter too,
like, very much.
I think it's also really interesting that if you ask an average American if the United Kingdom is a democracy, they'll say yes. They'll say, "Oh yeah, it's a democracy," but they don't vote. They explicitly don't vote for their prime minister. Like their system.
Doesn't Parliament vote for it?
Yeah, so it's like you vote for a party, and that party makes all the nominations that they want for themselves.
You don't
they
vote
make
for a
all their
person.
choices. Yeah. So, and I'm probably getting that partially wrong,
but it's weird.
but here's what I'll say: if you're gonna like hop in the comments and try and correct me about the democracy in the UK,
dude, who fucking cares?
I don't care.
Yeah. I don't give a shit.
I would never study that system of Turf Island.
Right. Like, fuck them. Like, how does that tiny island become such a big deal anyways? Fuck them.
Fuck them. Yeah, but so like it's weird that like
Atlantis.
That America will like identify a democracy based on whether they can vote for their leader, unless it's like the white guys that we like over in the UK. Like they don't vote for their leader, and yet they're still a democracy somehow. So
yeah,
it's just a real weird standard that they have.
But are you trying to say we're finding out Americans aren't really a democracy?
Yeah. I mean, the study said it itself.
I mean,
we're on 20 years now of proven
studies. Yeah. So do you not think in the last 20 years it would have gotten any better? Or do you think it would have snowballed out of control to a ridiculous state where somehow we're literally debating well, now not anymore, but we're debating on whether or not Ron DeSantis should be a nominee for a presidential election. Like, this is not real.
No.
No real democracy would put that weird dude in that position.
Sometimes I lay in bed at night and I think
about Ron
DeSantis, and I just fucking take a clean jerk off real quick. No. I lay in bed and I think like, I cannot believe that we are racing into 2024 right now, and our options are ultimately going to be 8,000-year-old man that hates Muslim people and
who just
immigrants,
love Zionism,
and then Trump. No, see, the funny part is nobody even knows which one I'm talking about.
Yeah,
because they're so fucking similar.
Not my guy. My guy wouldn't.
My guy loves
my guy.
No, but like literally, we have like two people that are just like human pieces of shit. One that is actively committing and promoting and pushing for genocide. There's literally like blood frothing out of his mouth as he sniffs children, and the other one is like this horribly failed businessman that has like 25 open rape cases and like. What are we doing, guys? If you try and call this democracy, you're fucking insane.
Yeah, the only good thing I stand by from Donald Trump ever was like peeing on some Russian girls. Like,
right.
I mean,
it's pretty based.
You only live once. You might as well try it. Try everything.
No, to me, the only good thing about Trump happened before he was even president, and it was his 9/11 tweet It was like one of the greatest tweets ever. Or there was the tweet, dude. There's another. I think second place for me is the tweet where he was talking about Elizabeth Warren's husband. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember what he said, but I remember that being a thing.
Hold on.
What
this is
was
really good radio again, but I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah. That's where we need a soundboard where we can just play some silly music to laugh at the fact that you're looking that up. All right, so Jamie, did you look that up? What's it say, Jamie?
Jamie, pull that
what
up
does
for
it say?
us. Jamie,
Pull it up.
Jamie, hurry this shit up.
Pull it up.
I got it pulled up. All right. Oh,
no,
thank you, Jamie.
Zoom in there.
Zoom in. Yeah. All right. So this is a Trump from a tweet
this
from
is
Donald
a Trump
J. Trump
from tweet.
You're right. This is a Trump from
on
tweet.
X.
No. So like my favorite like pre-president Trump tweet was the one about 9/11. If you don't know it, go look it up. It's hilarious. You'll laugh. The second one, this is President Trump tweet. This is in 2019. He tweeted, "Best line in the Elizabeth Warren beer catastrophe is to her husband, 'Thank you for being here. I'm glad you're here.' It's their house. He's supposed to be there." I love that, dude. Yeah.
See, that is where I don't know if I've said it to you on the pod before, but like ever since I saw people adding Seinfeld music to Trump talking, that's where we really messed up. Like,
oh yeah,
the guy is a stand-up comedy genius
for sure.
But does that make him presidential material? No. But do I want to watch him get up and make fun of more people?
Oh
absolutely,
my God, so badly. I'm like, so mad that he hasn't been in any of these debates yet. You know?
Yeah, like that is what I think we've been missing out on. Is I want to see him debate people because, like, if I'm gonna have to deal with him running, I at least want the entertainment of that.
Yeah, it's so good.
Oh man, but yeah, it looks like this beautiful democracy everyone says we have is turning up a little dry this year, just like every year since I've been legal age to vote. It's been that classic South Park joke of was it like a shit sandwich and
turd sandwich
a
and
giant
something.
or a giant douche. Like it's giant always douche, just two people that were like, well, it's the lesser of two evils. Like that's not the best we can do. If we're this amazing, glorious democracy and freedom and liberty and America, why aren't we fighting to like have actual freedom, liberty, and democracy? Like, we're not fighting for those in reality. We're fighting to let some people keep those things is what ends up happening is some people get to keep doing whatever they want and they have the funds to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And that is what it's turned into. And my question to you becomes, since a lot of people probably have no idea, you can pick any other democracy you want. I know what you're going to choose because you have loyalty and probably blood written somewhere on a contract. But is there is there a good example of maybe how a democracy might work somewhere else, like that might be set up a little different from how we do it?
I think that there are. Look, I want to start by saying that democracy, in my eyes, is something that is different for different people. But I think, again, what's really important about it is that it provides results, right? And you'll hear me say this
the
often. If you talk to me long enough, at some point you'll hear me say the phrase "democracy is not an ornament." If you Google that phrase, you'll understand where it comes from.
Craig.
But democracy truly
you should
is.
Google that phrase and read all of that.
Read, but democracy is not an ornament, right? And it needs to be a tool. And some tools work great for certain things, and some tools work great for other things. And if I think about like democracy as a tool, the things that it needs to work for are the cultures in question, right? And so I'm going to tell you about my favorite democracy and the way that it works a little bit. But I don't believe that you can like copy and paste that system into America. I don't think that it works that way.
But there's a lot of good ideas
Exactly.
that you
Yes.
can pull from it.
Exactly. There's a lot of things in there that work really well that could help strengthen our democracy in ways that we have never seen before in our entire lives. So if we look at, I'm not even going to put a name on it yet, but I will at some point. So if
Everyone
you,
knows.
I know. All right. If you imagine that there was a government that worked for you, right? To me, that would mean that I have like easy access to the levers of power. I have the ability to express my concerns and have them heard, and and have that done at a very local level, right? Like the way that our system works here in the United States, if I want anything significant done, I need to go way up the echelons of power to like a senator, not just a state senator,
Yeah.
but like an actual senator. And
And
if
do
I
like a letter writing campaign that'll totally
right,
work.
right.
Like,
So if I want like anything serious to happen, I need to go way high up to get anything serious done. And if I need anything, if I feel like I can actually affect any change on something, it's going to be way at the low level where like they have almost no power to actually make any change. So it's like this weird situation where you're in where like, yeah, I do have local representatives. Like I have local county representatives that I can talk to, but can they make my life materially better? Almost no. Almost no shot, of them doing
no.
anything materially. So
They
like
might
imagine a
mess with
system,
zoning laws, but like what
right?
they're not doing real policy at a
Yeah,
large
they're not
level.
going to be able to like pass poverty alleviation, they're not going to be able to like
No.
do anything significant, give me free education or healthcare or anything like that. They can't even come close to anything like that, right?
No,
But
they're more
imagine
like we need a new light in this area
yeah,
because
I
it's
need a stop sign
dark
over
and
here because we
yeah,
got a
or it's
deaf kid
stop
that lives
yeah.
down the street,
Yeah, like
um,
that's what they're good for, which is a great
which is fantastic.
service
That's
that's
fine.
required and we
Yeah,
need that and it's amazing, but
but I
it leaves
also
us without access to more.
right, and I wish that there was somebody like in my neighborhood that I knew that I could speak to about the real issues that I have in our current governing system, right? Like I could go and be like, look, like there are people that are being dropped off by hospitals dying at homeless shelters, being after being discharged. There are people that are going bankrupt due to medical bills or school whatever school debt, Uh, and there's nobody here like that. But there is a system in another country in China where if
He
you look at
gave
the
it away.
number right, if you look at the number of party members in China that belong to the Communist Party of China, when you break it down to like total population, there's about 1 in every 20, 1 in every 19. Sometimes populations vary, but it's never going to be more than about 1 in 30 people are a member of the Communist Party of China when you live in China. And that doesn't mean that all of them are like continuously elected officials, but being a party member in China is a significantly different thing than being a party member here in the United States. It's almost entirely a career that you can do by itself. It requires a lot of it requires a lot of work to be a part of the party in China. There are requirements for how much work you need to give to the party, the things that you need to do. So it's a significant undertaking. It's more than just like signing out a little form and sending it away. Boom, now I'm a Democrat, and that's all I have to do for 4 years. So there are a lot of party members right in your neighborhood when you live in China. And not all of them are elected, like I said, at all times, but all of them have some sway in the party. All of them have the ear of the party because they are the party. Like they understand that, and they meet and they discuss the needs of the people that they're supposed to be governing over. That's part of their thing. They're constantly educating themselves, they're educating the population, and they're trying to listen to what the people are saying so they can pass that up the chain. And then when it comes to like the specific issue of democracy in China, I think this is really important, and it's something that I wish we could do in the United States. The way that they elect their president is, and first of all, they don't really have a president, but I mean, I'm kind of splitting hairs here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the way that they elect like their heads of state are so different than ours, but they work so well because that they're like a bottom up formation. There are 5 different levels of government in China, and it starts at kind of like that more neighborhood, or like what we would understand here in the United States as like a county level. So there's kind of like that county level government or neighborhood level government, and then you just kind of go up from there to, you know, your state level kind of thing, your provincial level, your regional level, all the way up to your national level. And what happens is the bottom 2 rungs of that government, the most local ones, are the only ones that you are able to vote for, right? And so
But those are people, if it's 1 in 30, that
yeah,
you live very close
you live
to,
close to,
so
you
you
know
know them
them.
more, you have a
Yep.
better understanding of who they are, what their neighborhood might
They
be
know
like,
you, they know your
how they
family.
were brought up. They know what kind of jobs people there are working. They know the area that they're representing very well.
Right. And what happens is you elect those people, and I know I shouldn't even have to say this because, but there are elections in China. There might be some people listening that don't believe this, but there are elections in China, and there's just not a presidential election. There's
Yeah.
these local elections where you get to, you know, in your neighborhood, in your group of people that you know, you get to elect somebody, not that you think is the most charismatic, although sometimes that person wins, you know, not the person that campaigns the best, not the person that has like all this money to throw on all these campaigns. No, you elect somebody in your neighborhood that, or in your little county, that you know understands the issues that you and your community are facing, and number 2, that you think will be able to push for those things, right?
Yeah.
So you elect that person, and all the other counties and neighborhoods in the country do the same. And what happens is, in that neighborhood that is elected, the neighborhood next door, they elect somebody, they elect somebody, elects those people that all get elected in a county or in like a state. They create like a council, a committee, right? And then those people get together and they elect the person above them. Who among us has the best grasp on what it is that we're looking for from our citizens that brought us here? And they elect that person, right? And then now that person goes across the country or the region in this case, and they all do the same calculation. Who should we nominate and elect for that? And that person goes up and up 5 times, like I said. And once you get to that final place, that person says, those people, they together, they're the highest organ of government in China. They come together and say, who do we choose to represent the entire country? And that's how you end up with somebody like Xi Jinping, who is in power right now, who I think is probably one of the greatest leaders of all time as far as like peaceful democratic leaders go. You know, I think there are some
Yeah.
way better
Put your
leaders.
boner away.
I know. I think there's some, but I mean, like, look, you can say whatever you want about Xi Jinping, and people will say that, and people are listening to this saying, "Okay, Craig's crazy again." You know, this is the 2nd episode in a row. He's really lost his marbles.
Yeah.
But
He never
like,
had him to begin with.
but again, yeah.
Yeah.
Joke's on you. I've been crazy my entire life.
Yeah, and we don't want him.
Yeah. But like ultimately, like, what
He
you
was
have to
chosen,
remember,
though, despite how everyone in the US feels like he's a dictator that took his power.
no,
Like, he was chosen.
he is like the most popular leader China has ever had.
Yeah.
He's probably the most popular leftist or communist leader in history, except maybe Lula. Lula might be.
Lula, yeah.
Lula's extremely popular. But
Although,
anyways,
not based on numbers, but based on pure love, there was another
yeah.
one who was definitely beloved in
Which
his
one are you thinking?
beautiful
I mean, I've
country
got
of
a
Cuba.
million. Oh, I know. Fidel,
Cuba
he's
Libre,
still in my
man.
heart.
Dude,
Yeah.
Castro, people adored Castro.
Oh wait, you're talking about Justin Trudeau's father?
Justin's dad?
Justin's dad?
And before we get into more about how much you want to suck a Chinese leader's dick.
Yeah.
I just want to point out, if you remember at the beginning when we talked about UAW, if you think about how union democracy works and how unions would like for democracy in the workplace to be, it
Yeah.
has a lot of
Similarities.
wild similarities with what you just explained of, like, especially in a workplace, who best to decide the leader of a team in this department than the team that does it every day, and they
Right.
can choose among themselves, hey, this person has it figured out more than any of us, and he'd probably be good at this role, where people usually know, like, I wouldn't be good at doing that, but I'm good at this.
Right.
And then those people can elect, like, here's
Exactly.
this person should be the manager over all the departments. Like,
I think it's notable
it's
that
oddly similar, Craig, and that happens here in the US every day. So before you be like, oh, that's how China does it,
right.
like, unions do this in the workplace
Yes.
every day
Yes.
in America.
Yes. And it's notable that those two systems, which are similar, end up providing better results. Like,
Yes, they get
like
results because it's organized and the people have a say. And if the
yes.
people get reasonable results to what they're asking for, they tend to be a little happier and they don't cause more problems.
Right.
What do
Just
you know? A
imagine for a
happy
second, like
worker with solid pay and benefits is going to be a better worker? What do you know?
whole process people's democracy is the form of democracy that's practiced in China. It's called whole process people's democracy. It's significantly
What a
different than
badass name.
I know. Whole process people's democracy is awesome. It's a great name. I think Xi Jinping actually added the people's part. I believe before that
Good.
they
Good
just
for
referred to it as whole process democracy, but
Sounds
whole process
better.
people's democracy is way better. But the point is, whole process people's democracy focuses on those results, right? And like, if you look at, like I said, like the results that you get from the UAW and the results that you get from whole process people's democracy in China, you end up with these fantastic results. And most importantly to me, like, imagine if we had whole process people's democracy or some function of that here in the United States. Like, if you're listening right now and you hate Biden, or if you're listening right now and you hate Trump, I don't care who it is, right?
Yeah, either one's valid.
Either one's valid. Totally. I get your feelings. You're seen, you're heard. Uh, if if you hate either of those fucks, right?
Yeah.
And you knew that, like, the dude that lives like 3 streets over from you ultimately is responsible for keeping that person in power, imagine how much more power you would have to get rid of him. You could go door to door
Yes.
for the 150 houses in your neighborhood, the 300 houses in your neighborhood, even 500 houses in your neighborhood is not that big of a deal if you hate this dude so much. You go door to door and be like, hey, you hate this fucker too? You hate this fucker too? Okay, let's go. We're going to march down to Johnny's house that we elected last year and be like, what the fuck are you doing? And Johnny's going to go, I just voted for this other dude above me, and that dude elected, Biden and Trump. And then you go, okay, so now here's your choice, Johnny. You either don't vote for that motherfucker, you vote him out, or we vote you out.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. Like, that's how quickly shit happens. Like,
Connect.
if we had whole process, like, all those people that hate Biden right now, Biden has a 33% approval rating in the country right now, which is like the worst an incumbent president has ever had going into an election year. If we had whole process people's democracy in this country, he would not be in that position right now, because 77% of the country, is that right? 67% of the country would go around and to their neighbors and be like, he's done. He's done.
Yeah.
Get him out of there. Get him out of there. And he'd be gone like that, So it's powerful. It brings the power down to a people level, which is where it needs to be. I don't know, man. I can go off for a fucking hour and a half on this.
I have another question.
I can talk about dictatorships too, but go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Another question.
Get out of my head. Let me ask the question.
I'm sorry, I didn't even know you're going there.
Jeez. It is about that dictator, because, like, just
he's not
like
elected.
anyone
he's a
else.
Dictator.
I'm sure you had that growing up in school. I'm pretty sure they taught that, like, a dictator is never democratically voted, that they take power by force only. is how they portrayed it, of like
Right.
he's not elected, he's not fit, he's a tyrant. So one of the things that blew my mind is I like, what kind of past would you say this quote unquote evil dictator of China has had? Like leading up before he started serving in this position he's in now.
Yeah.
What was Xi
So
Jinping up to? Like, what
what
was
was he?
his
What was
life
this evil
before
dude
that?
like? Yeah.
Because we know politicians in America are essentially like they were raised in generational wealth, and
Yes. You
like
have to
their
be
whole life was that mentality,
the
and
most
they're not
elite.
acclimated with the average Joe. And we all
Right.
know that. We've known that for years. So
Right.
I'm curious, uh well, I'm not curious anymore. You've told me, but I
Yeah.
would
For the
like to
viewers.
hear that of like what was his, I guess, credentials? What was his life like? What was his background before he definitely
So
took power?
I will
Just
say,
took it.
um, I'm gonna put a pin in the other part about dictatorship that I was going to talk about, because and remind me if
Yeah,
in case I
because
forget. Because
then that's kind of the next where I'm going is like what really is dictatorship, not in
yes,
our
yes,
American eyes, but
yeah,
like
we'll get
actually put
there.
into
But
practice,
let's
because
talk
those are
about,
two different definitions.
yeah, we'll talk about evil Xi Jinping and like how evil he was growing up, right? So I will
Yeah,
say that
just
like
terrible.
compared to Western leaders, there are some similarities. I will openly admit that. Like,
Oh yeah,
so
there's going to be
Xi
some.
Jinping's father was a an important member of the party at one point. However, he was kind of like disgraced. During the I believe it was during the Deng Xiaoping era. I believe that's when it took place. He was kind of disgraced, and kind of like demoted. And so Xi Jinping, growing up in that family, was kind of seen as like the son of this person who used to be elite and is kind of no longer. But Xi Jinping, like he put in the work to get to where he is. I'm probably going to get some of the details wrong on this. It's been a minute, so bear with me. But he, in order to, first of all, to get into the party, um, that's a long and
Yeah,
sometimes very difficult
you don't
process.
just say, "Hey, I'm this
I'm
party
in the
now."
party. Yeah, it's it's like PSL in the United States, except like to the extreme, where you can't just like, oh, I'm in. So
Yeah, and if
he
you don't
tried to
know
get in.
PSL, look it up too.
Yeah, PSL is fantastic. Obviously, if you look at like his path, I believe he failed to get in the first time or the second time, two times, multiple times. So he tried to get into the party. He was not accepted. He eventually was accepted, and he had to spend. The party basically told him like, look, and they do this for a lot of their members. If you want to lead, in this country, you need to understand the people. And so they sent him out to a very rural countryside in order to represent the party there. And he wasn't living in like a luxurious estate in this rural area. No, he was like living amongst the people, seeing their everyday struggles, understanding the things that drove them, made them happy, the things that were impeding their happiness, the things that they needed help with. And he spent
And
many years there.
not just on a report of like, here's the demographic of this area and how they feel by age. Like he in person witnessed what their day-to-day life actually was like,
Right,
which
right.
I think is vastly different than like I've read about this, or
Yeah,
I saw the numbers on this, but like have you seen in a tangible way how these things affect their daily life? Like when
yes,
they wake up and you see them in town, like you get to know the
right.
struggle on a different level.
Yeah. And the only reason he ends up getting into the position that he's in is because of how well tapped into that society that he was. Like he's there, he's working with the people, he's working amongst the people, he's trying to understand what they need, and they're voting for him because he's delivering. You know, he's going around, he's finding the things that need to be fixed, and he's doing everything that he can in his power with the party, with the party behind him to try and fix those things. And those fixes eventually lead to him being voted into the next highest rank, voted into the next highest rank, voted into the next highest rank until
So he was
eventually,
voted up more than once. Odd, because I thought he had to take power to be a
right.
dictator.
Yeah, well, I'm skipping over the part where he bombed the presidential palace and seized
Oh,
power in a violent coup. No, I'm just
yeah,
kidding. Of
where
course,
like
that
the
never happened.
CIA got into a coup with him to
Yeah,
overthrow. Yeah, like
that's that's one of the cool parts about whole process people's democracy is that it is a meritocratic system. It is a
it's like all
actual
these politicians, if they're not doing well, cannot keep going up those levels. So you
right,
don't end up like someone might get in and maybe they'll make it up a level or two, but
right.
at some point people realize and they're
They're
like,
not
okay, this
delivering.
isn't working for the people. Like for us, we half the people don't probably know the actual policies a senator or a representative
No clue.
has.
Right,
They're just, I voted this way for president, so I'm always voting
dude. Just
Democratic
look
for
at
everything.
Nancy
Like
Pelosi.
it's I don't want to
Like
look at that. It's
everybody, left or right,
just
hates Nancy Pelosi.
ew.
Like, and she's never really delivered anything important in her entire career. She's just been a career politician that just plays the game really well. But she's stayed in power, and she grabbed the reins of some of the most powerful positions in our government simply because she has the right donors, she knows the right
Yes.
people, not
That's
by delivering in any
where
way.
like if our democracy had more of a say like that, people like Ronald fucking Reagan would have done what they did in California and people would have been like, we should
Mm,
never give
yeah.
this guy a shot at
Nah.
presidency.
Right.
Like that
Yeah.
dude did some wild stuff even as a governor. So like that is just crazy to think that this person people think like is an evil dictator and that's not a democracy. He actually had to go through like winning over the people more times, like
Way
in a
more.
real way than
Yeah.
any American politician has ever had to do.
Yeah. You
Like
know
if
what one of
anything,
my
he's more democratically voted in than any American politician.
one of my favorite things about American politics is when politicians, especially politicians on the left, like Bernie Sanders, start like promising things to their constituents, like
But you
free
know they can't
healthcare.
deliver on.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, but also like they promise them, and then the reaction that you get from the right is like, oh, they're they're trying to bribe. They're basically just
Yeah.
bribing the population. It's like, bro, what the fuck do you think this is? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, if somebody tells me, yeah, I'm gonna make your life better, like, yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, bro. That's not bribing. That's just delivering on promises. You
Yeah,
fucking
that's just
dumbass.
doing your job that you're being elected
Yeah.
to do.
Oh, I'm gonna cut
Like,
you a check so that you can fucking survive COVID. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What are you
yeah,
bribing me now?
yeah, like that is one though, like the healthcare, like you said, in America over the last 40 years, it has always been more than 50%. Sometimes it's been closer to 70%. Like for 40 years now, I've said they want some form of like
Universal
healthcare, like
or
universal
easy
healthcare,
access
like
or
something. And we've seen these fake like Obamacare shit and like where they present it as if like that's what we're gonna do. And then it turns out like, no, if you're like poor enough, but like not poor enough to get Medicare, we might be able to help a little bit. Is and it's like, wait,
right.
so for 40 years we've wanted this. If we were a democracy, our elected representatives would find a way to make that happen if that's what the majority really wanted.
Right.
And
There's
as
another
much as
option to get
people
healthcare in America
say
though,
like
just by the
we
way.
don't want it to be like Canada or whatever, this or that, it doesn't have to be like anything else. It can be our own whatever we want to make it. It just
Yeah.
needs to be different than it is now.
The other way to get free healthcare in America is if you're willing to go kill a bunch of brown people
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then come back
Yeah.
and you get to like wait in line a lot.
Yeah, where
Like that
yeah,
works
it's
really.
like I
Yeah.
really like killing brown babies. Can I have some free health care, please?
Can I have some college and like somebody to fix my broken leg, please? I killed enough
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah, I killed a bunch of kids, and now I'm missing half of my leg.
Yeah. Can
Can
somebody
you
take a look at
guys
this
give
for
me
me?
some really bad healthcare? Don't worry, I'll wait 6 hours in the waiting room.
The other piece that I want to talk about is about dictatorship. I think is important to understand for people that are newer to the topic of like different forms of democracy.
Because
Um,
I said earlier, in America, the view of a dictatorship is always painted in the same light as like Mussolini, a far right like fascist
right.
leader, is how they paint it, like it's just next to that. Like they're
Yeah.
right there too. Like
Right.
they're like Hitler.
Well, they try to do this
they'll
thing. They try to do this thing with authoritarianism, which I
yeah.
hate. I hate the word. I hate the term. I hate everything about it because
Yeah,
it's really
because
it's really just masking.
yeah.
It's a PR spin. The entire word, in my opinion, authoritarianism
Do
is
you
a
want to argue
PR
semantics for
spin.
an hour? Let's discuss this word for an hour because I
It's a
could with you on this.
honestly, but it's a PR spin on who controls the levers of power and to what end, right? The because look,
It's the man.
we just described to you at the beginning of this episode that you know, for over 20 years now, the people that actually have control over what policies happen in this country are just the wealthy. They're just the
Yes.
rich, right? So how is that not a dictatorship of the rich? Newsflash, it is a dictatorship of the rich. It is authoritarianism of the rich against the poor and the rest of the population, and not even the poor, like just everybody else, you know? And so it's important that you fucking purge the word authoritarianism from your lexicon entirely because it's silly. It's silliness. It's silliness. And I know people will argue with me about this. I know, Paul, you might not even fully agree with me because you got a lot of anarchist tendencies. But
yeah. And that's why I said, if you want to argue semantics about authority,
we certainly
I've been
can.
doing that since I knew how to argue.
Right.
Like,
But like, so to me, on like a broad level, like authoritarianism to me means like who is controlling the levers of power and to what end they're trying to do, right? And if you look at China as authoritarian, if somebody says to me China is authoritarianism, or is authoritarian, I'll say you're goddamn right. You're goddamn right. And you know what they do with that authority? Since it's bottom up, since it's whole process people's
yeah, but
democracy,
who
you know what they do?
holds the authority?
Yeah. You know what they do with that authority? There was a company in China that was making poisonous baby what is it called? The formula, right?
You
You know
made
what
me
they
watch this clip of that.
you know what they did? You know what they did? They
They said,
rounded
fuck
up
you, essentially.
They rounded up that company. First of all, they said this isn't your company anymore. This is now controlled by the state. That's first of all. Number two, we're going and because these people they caught them. They
Yeah.
knew full well that they were selling this poisonous baby formula and killing children across the country. They took it over. They said, "This is ours now. We're going to send some people in there. We're going to figure this shit out. We're going to make some actual baby formula that doesn't fucking kill kids." And then number two, you're fucking dead. Like they weren't fucking around. They rounded up the CEOs, they put them on a trial, and like 7 days later they were executed. Now, I have my own thoughts about state sanctioned killing and the death penalty. And in general, I'm very, very much against that, right? But I will say that killing maybe I shouldn't say this on a podcast so brazenly.
Say it, because after I'll tell you my view.
Killing CEOs that are killing children is a significantly better system than giving them a $10,000 fucking fine and a $500 million golden parachute to go kill some other kids at some other fucking business. That's how I feel. There we go. Sorry. I don't know if I'm going to have to edit that one. That's pretty fucking extreme. I've had too many of these Nazi seltzers.
So I wanted to look up the actual quote, but
yeah. Reel me in, Paul. I'm off the rails right now.
I forgot how long it is, but essentially I was going to say my view on that Capitol punishment, whatever word you want to use, is very much in line with if you've ever listened to a wonderful man named, well, he has a son named Justin Trudeau. But like his view is my
Fidel
view
Castro, in case
because
anybody was wondering.
yeah,
But go.
so Castro, when Americans were doing essentially the Red Scare but against Cuba, of like, let's look how bad they are and he's a murderer and this and that, and like Castro said, like, no, our, like, as a society, our view is that murdering other people is bad. But in certain cases, sometimes you are left with no other option. Of like when he needed to overthrow evil, he knew there was some necessary killing that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But as a society, they didn't believe in like we're going to continuously always be killing people.
Right.
It was understanding the difference between like, it's just like, let's bring it back to everyone's favorite movies, the Star Wars movies, that are really just showing how evil the Empire of America is. Like if Luke Skywalker kills like the Emperor, are you going to be like, look at this horrible fucking
Is that
murder?
bad?
Like, look at this tyrant murderer killing this man. And it's like, well,
newsflash,
like,
people, good things are good
like,
and bad things are bad.
Sometimes, you know, you gotta do it. It is what it is. And if it's someone like that, like imagine if America had a system where when what was that stupid company's name that put the plastics in everyone's life and body for the rest
Teflon,
of
the Teflon
eternity?
shit.
Yeah, is it DuPont?
DuPont.
Were they Teflon? Yeah.
Yeah.
But like if we had that system where we could have done what we all wanted to that company, America was outraged that this was like happening. And that company exists right now. You can go buy stock for this company.
Yeah, I was just going to ask,
right
that
now.
company's no more, right?
And
like
they're doing great. They're doing better than ever. They have government
IBM
contracts.
Exists.
They have government contracts. A company that has poisoned the globe forever. Like these studies coming out lately, they're doing a lot of them about the microplastics in America. Like we're so far ahead of other countries. Like here, we won one of, we have the most microplastics in our bodies. Like,
woo!
Yay.
Get it.
Like, it's just insane that like our reaction to a company like that is outrage from all the people. And yet they're doing fine. They're doing great right now. They paid probably a tiny fine that was like 1/1000th of their profits for one quarter. And they were like, oh, cool. Man, that was tough. Like
maybe somebody went to jail.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Maybe, but it was probably
probably not
someone who didn't like really make the decisions, but they could pin it on them. Like someone's got to go down for this.
This shit is just so frustrating to me, honestly, because it's like,
because we could go on forever with examples like that.
Thousands.
In comparison,
the Cuyahoga River at one point was literally on fire.
Yeah.
And all the companies responsible for that are still in business today. You know,
like even we just saw the East Palestine trains. I was
just gonna say,
like that happened. And not only did we not like drastically change that company and like forcibly
what's the railroad company name? I don't remember.
I don't know, but shitty railroads. I don't know. We know the Chinese didn't build those ones.
No, definitely not. Their trains fucking run on time.
Yeah, like, but like the fact that company, not only are they still a functioning company and no one like punished them whatsoever for it, they were like, you know who should clean this up and do all the research and everything about it is that company.
Yeah.
What? Like you're letting like, and they're hiring themselves to go in and be like, yeah, it's not that bad. It's all safe here. Like you cannot have zero oversight and expect it to go well.
No.
Like when these kinds of things happen, we have to hold these companies accountable and we have to be able to keep them from continuing to do these sorts of things, or else they shouldn't exist, or they should be hanging somewhere. Or I don't know, maybe there's a song I've heard once about how we have the guillotine.
Yeah.
Maybe we go back to the guillotine. Maybe we just go back to guillotines. I bet
Right.
if we put a guillotine in the in the shareholders room uh,
Right.
of every shareholders meeting, if there's a guillotine sitting there just that they had to stare at, knowing like that could be my fate, they would act a lot different.
Yeah. Paul, I think we're
Gonna talk for too long about this if we keep going.
we're missing out on like a very important demographic for our podcast. If you look at if you look at some of the stats that we have, like we don't have a lot of women, which is, you know, I mean, we talk about stupid shit, so that makes sense. But if you're a woman and you're a fan of Julia Roberts, you should really empathize with what we're talking about right now. Because if you're a woman and you're a fan of Julia Roberts, you probably know that like one of her biggest movies was a movie called Erin Brockovich. And in Erin Brockovich, in that movie, it's based on the true story of a woman named Erin Brockovich that found that this company, this horrible gas and oil company, was literally poisoning thousands of people in the United States. They knew they were poisoning them. They knew that they were killing them and their family and causing DNA complications that would cause generational health issues forever for
So
these
they
people.
stopped all those practices and everyone lived happily ever
And
after, right?
luckily, that company was nationalized, taken over, and all their CEOs were executed by this. Oh, wait, never mind. It's actually a company called Pacific Oil and Gas that still exists to this day.
Oh,
They're like, I think they just had a record breaking quarter a couple of years ago or
good for
a year ago.
them.
I know, dude. It's fantastic.
Yeah, if
I'm really
anyone
glad that they
deserves
turned it around. Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, this is why whole process People's Democracy is something that we need to look at seriously if you want to actually make changes in this country, because
we'll even make media about it for you to consume,
right,
but we won't actually fucking
exactly,
do anything about it.
exactly.
We'll make
like,
movies so we can profit off the idea of how we should take these bad things down.
and there was that other one.
But we
What was
won't
it?
do it.
Still water or something. I think that was the one about the Teflon stuff.
Yeah, the Teflon stuff is insane.
We make all
me.
these movies, we make all this stuff for you to consume about how bad these companies are, like while the companies still exist. It's crazy to me. It's crazy.
And what's crazy is like even the DuPont one has like there's layers to the DuPont family. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Everything the DuPont family touches is sheer madness and evil.
Complete insanity.
Like,
look at that
these
movie,
people,
fucking Foxcatcher.
But like that's yeah.
And
creepy,
I have an entire other
weird,
episode
like,
that we could talk about how capital accumulation just deteriorates people's minds and creates complete psychopaths. But if you want an example of that, go watch the movie Foxcatcher and look at what happens to somebody who's like the third or fourth or fifth generation heir of one of these gigantic companies like DuPont. The dude lost his mind. So
yeah, and at a certain point, it's like, how much can we expect from someone who is brought up in that environment? Their life, they've known nothing but getting whatever they want whenever they want.
Complete servitude from everyone around them.
Yeah, so it's like, how normal of a person do you think that's going to make them into? Like,
yeah.
And then they're not only are they this psychopath, but then they also have these vast amounts of power that comes along with that wealth, which is just terrifying.
Yeah, like we said, going back to the beginning, like these people that are accumulating so much capital that they're like going insane are the people that are running the ship. What are we doing, folks?
Right? Like, because those are your quote unquote authoritarian leaders right now.
Yes.
It's those fucks that everyone knows are little fucks who were raised with everything handed to them and servants and all this shit. They know they have a trust fund from the day they're born. Like,
yes,
these people are the ones running shit that affects all of our daily lives.
Look, in life, in governments, the way that this shit works, at least for now,
fuck or get fucked. Oh wait, no, that's not it.
The way that this shit works right now, and not to talk about the future and ideals and like these heady ideas about classless, stateless societies
Yeah.
and all that, yada, 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 yada. Cool.
I don't live in dreamland.
Right. The way that it works right fucking now is there is either a dictatorship of these people that own everything, that have been served their entire life and are completely detached from reality, or there's a dictatorship of the people. Those are your choices right now. And we've got to make a choice at some point to figure out like what is best for us. Is it living under the thumb of these absolute vampiric psychopaths, or is it trying to find something different and looking elsewhere at what works elsewhere, and becoming like the masters of our own destiny? That's what this shit is all about. So
Yeah, because that gets me. I'm tired of hearing people be so upset, and we're not presenting any option for how we can move forward positively.
yeah,
People are either like, they cling on to maybe my guy next time will do it, or they just say, fuck it, politics isn't for me, this whole thing's a joke, and they give
yeah,
up.
yeah.
And we need people
I
to
understand the giving
realize
up.
we
I
need to,
understand it.
yeah. And we don't have enough community of people getting together and realizing we're not alone in that thought of like, we can all get together and stand up and take over control of our lives again.
Yeah.
And we can do it. It just requires a lot of organization, a lot of us getting together, sometimes hashing it out. We might not always agree, but we
No.
need to get together and organize it and figure out a solution. Because
Yeah.
if we just keep bitching that we hate it but have no solution, then it's never going to get better. We can overthrow a government, but if we have nothing to replace it, the same shit's going to just come right back up.
Right. And if you're at all interested in any of the psychotic ramblings that I just did, there's a great book you can read. It's called The Governance of China. It's written by one of my favorite authors. His name is Xi Jinping. Go ahead and in fact, actually, for anybody that's listening, you should do this. This is a fun little exercise for the viewers. If you email a Chinese consulate in the United States, like I think there's one in Chicago still. That's probably the closest one to where we're at. If you email a Chinese consulate and ask them for some reading material, they'll oftentimes send you a copy of that book in the mail for free.
I want to do that just to see if I get
Do
the
it.
book.
Have you ever done it? You should do it.
No, I want to see if I can get. I want to see what they'll send me.
Yeah, you're on a list for life after that. But yeah,
well, I'm probably already on a couple lists. It doesn't matter.
I had to go to the Chinese consulate way back in the day to get shit sorted before a trip. But yeah,
I
you can
thought
ask
the agency would have taken care of that for you, but okay.
You can no comment. You can ask in person, or you can email. And if you like Google search this, like the people they get books and shit for free from them. So
hell yeah.
If you don't want to pay for the governance of China, just ask for it. They're very open to spreading real democracy in the United States. So
yeah, which honestly, for how much Americans love democracy, all right, well then let's turn this shit back into a democracy.
Right.
Or if it ever was one.
All right, so closing thoughts, Paul. What do you think, man? What are you feeling? What do you got?
My thoughts are we have the guillotine.
We do.
And honestly, I think my thoughts just before this were very much how I feel here lately about democracy, about all of it in America. Of we need to not just bitch about how bad it is and give up. We need to support our friends who are having those moments, and we need to have a community. We need to help each other. We need to organize. We need to figure out if we want this stuff to change, we have to do it. Like we need to make this change happen. And it's an overused quote, but that just reminded me of, the be the change you wish to see in the world, which it's so overused. It sounds silly and cliche, but when you think about it, there's a reason everyone knows that quote. Like,
Yep.
we can't expect change to happen and for anything to get better if we stay complacent and just watch it happen. We need to organize, we need to get together, we need to have these talks and figure out how we can shape a better future for ourselves. Because if we don't try, they'll just stay in power and it'll keep going this way, and we'll just watch life happen.
Right. That's good. Here's some closing thoughts of my own. Is I sometimes I don't know if this is just me because I'm so plugged in to all of this stuff, but I'm feeling like there is something different about 2024 that we probably haven't seen in our lifetimes. And if you're feeling that way too, you need to be ready. You need to start doing the work now in understanding how these things can organize after whatever, after anything. Like start thinking deeply instead of thinking about electoralism in the United States and like the horse race and the debates and Trump did this and Biden did that and stuff like that. Start thinking more deeply about like what democracy means to you and what you expect to get out of a system of government that works for you. And remember a very important quote, that there are decades where nothing happens and there are weeks when decades happen. You have to be prepared for those weeks when decades happen.
Yeah.
Right.
We might see some of those weeks.
We might
this year.
see some of those
I think
weeks.
it's
and
possible.
I never thought it would be possible in my lifetime, but I am feeling like that more and more we might be seeing some of those weeks. So that's all I got.
Yeah. I think that is about it. Like,
with us. We know you could've stayed home, just cried and cussed. May or your guns go off if it's time to bust. May or their tanks have time to rust. They got the armies turning bullets into gold. They got the hookers turning tricks into cold. And every time the police kicks in the dough, an angel gas breaks dips in the O. And even if a D-boy flips in my O, it ain't enough to buy shit anymore. Sleep in the doorway, piss on the floor. Look in the sky, wait for missiles to show. It's finna blow, cause they got the TV, we got the truth. They own the judges and we got the proof. We got hella people, they got helicopters, they got the bombs, and we got the guillotine.